Hard beginnings, 1868 to 1887. From his impoverished, hand-to-mouth early years in rural Wisconsin and Minnesota, and equally hardscrabble years as a young man in present-day Port Orchard and later on in Seattle, Washington, Edward Sheriff Curtis's long life of adventure and early fame and nagging disappointments and losses is a profoundly American story. One of clashing cultures and peoples, of monumental grit and accomplishment, yet also of bitter disappointment and defeat, lofty yearnings, and serious missteps. It is the compelling story of an authentic, sincere, deeply committed intellectual and artistic quest. Curtis was born on February 16, 1868, on a small farm near Whitewater, Wisconsin, the second child of Johnson Ashel Curtis and Ellen Sheriff Curtis. His siblings were Raphael, 6 years his elder, Eva, born in 1870, and Ashel, born in 1875. Johnson Curtis had been a Union private and Army chaplain during the Civil War, and the brutal conditions of that horrific war permanently ruined his health. For the rest of his life, he struggled to sustain the necessary strength to meet the physical demands of 19th century subsistence farming. When Edward was 5, the family moved to a farm in Le Sueur County, Minnesota, and 7 years later moved again to Cordova, Minnesota, where Johnson Curtis opened a small grocery. The store did not do well, but Edward did attend Cordova's one-room school for a few years, the only formal schooling he ever received. While struggling to keep his grocery afloat, Johnson Curtis took a new job as an itinerant preacher with the Evangelical Christian United Brethren Church, where he was sent into the rural countryside to preach, perform weddings, baptisms, and funerals. Edward often traveled on these circuits with his father, paddling southeast Minnesota's inland lakes and rivers, packing and hauling their supplies, portaging the heavy gear between waterways and around unnavigable rapids, camping, hunting, trapping, and cooking. Through these early experiences, he developed a lifelong love of life outdoors and a keen facility for taking care of himself in the harsh conditions of the 19th and early 20th century American backcountry. By 1887, Johnson Curtis's health was worsening, and in the early fall, he and Edward moved to Washington Territory's more temperate climate. After they settled near the village of Sidney, present-day Port Orchard, on Puget Sound across from Seattle, got a cabin up, and began to clear the land, his mother, sister, and younger brother joined them. Raphael, the oldest son, had already left home, and for several years Edward was the family's main breadwinner. But Johnson Curtis died only 3 days after his family arrived. The 19-year-old Edward Curtis was now the head of a small, impoverished family in a world entirely new to them all. Tough, early Midwestern years, hardscrabble homesteading, and time as a logger and lumberyard hired hand. More adventures and accolades were to follow soon. We'll stop.